This week on the grid, we've got an Ask Me Anything episode. Scott's out on his workshop, and it all starts in about 8 seconds.
The grid is brought to you by Platypod, the tripod alternative that is changing the world. Everybody has a Platypod. You should too. Go to platypod.com.
Well, hey, everybody. How's it going? As you can see, Scott's not here, right? So we do have Christina joining us today, though.
Hey, everyone.
So as you guys have probably seen if you've watched the show, Christina heads up all the video stuff over here. She does all the production side of it. So she's usually the one over there kind of feeding us the comments, kind of doing all that stuff. But today she's on the show. We're going to be taking your questions live on air. We'll be able to answer your questions about anything. What I like to say about that is I can answer your question on about everything. It doesn't mean it's going to be the correct answer, right? It'll be the answer that I know best of my ability. And then sometimes I like to say that the better question or the better answer is a better question, right? Sometimes we want to really get into, well, what are we really asking there? So this whole show, we're going to be answering your questions. So anything you want to know from my side, I'm going to get a better answer to you if it's something about night photography, astrophotography, anything aviation related, aerospace, action, wildlife, landscape. That's kind of my thing. And Christina does a lot of production. So anything you want to know about production, what could you help out with?
I could answer questions about how to get started with a shoot, kind of what to do when you're on set, things that we do behind the scenes at KelbyOne, anything you guys want to know in terms of any kind of production work at all, and what we do here, you can ask me that.
Yeah, because now again, you can ask us anything, but those are the things that we'll be able to answer the best, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's one of the things, kind of kicking it off here, with when it comes to production, a lot of photographers, which this is a photography show, we're all photographers, I'm hoping watching this show. If not, I feel for you.
We're in trouble.
I feel for you. But, the thing is, as a photographer, production is it's almost like a lot of us have to be our own producers,
Absolutely.
I mean, you do get to a stage, and that's what I say is like, it is fortunate a lot of times that like around here we have Christina and her team where they can be our producers and put this stuff together. But a lot of times when I'm going on shoots or somebody's going on shoots on their own, we're having to be the producer. We're having to do it all. We're having to wear all these hats.
Yes.
As a photographer, you kind of do have to wear all those hats. But it's great to hear from people who do this professionally, because that's one thing is really having a great producer or having a producer mindset really helps your photography. Perfect example that I know that comes to mind is Joe McNally, right?
Yeah.
Joe McNally, there's a secret to Joe McNally, and her name's Lynn, right?
Right.
That's the secret. That's his producer, and she is phenomenal at producing, and that's her job, but they mesh together, they meld. It's kind of like you and Scott. When Scott's doing a shoot, Scott will explain stuff to you, do all that stuff, and then you kind of have that inside knowledge of like what he likes, what he doesn't like, what he's really talking, kind of like a translator almost as a producer you have to be, right?
Yeah, and then how to make it happen and to do it efficiently and, just executing the photo shoot and whatever's envisioning, whatever he's envisioning for the shoot.
Exactly, like bringing that alive, that's a skill. And a lot of us, I know, have to wear that hat as photographers. We don't have that resource, but this is a great time to ask those questions, like I said, about any of that stuff, because we can help you out. That's what we're here for. We're here to help. That's why we do this. We're educators. That's why we have KelbyOne as a resource. There's great classes over there on all the stuff with producing shoots, getting stuff together, anything that we were talking about here. But before we get to that, we have to give away, we got a bunch of prizes we got to give away. Because as you know, if you watch the show, we've got tons of prizes to give away over here. So what do we have this week?
Well, I'm excited because we added a new book this week, Moose Peterson's book called Take Off.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of you out there really enjoy aviation photography. So we're going to give that away for you tonight.
That's like a aviation photography Bible. Like if you want the thing that's going to show you like all the different techniques you need in aviation photography, definitely want that book.
And then we've got Scott's travel photography book. This one was super popular when it first came out, and I know he did a fantastic job getting it all the details that you need in terms of what to do if you're traveling and how to get good shots.
Oh yeah, that's a great one. What else do we have?
Of course, we've got On One No Noise 2024. Some lucky winner will get that today. And then we also have another app called Retouch for Me. We're going to give away the mattifier one from their suite, and anyone can actually get a discount for Retouch for Me, a 20% discount if you enter the promo code KelbyOne20 and you go to www.promo.retouchforme, or I'm sorry, retouch4.me.
Because they couldn't make it any easier.
Yeah, and I'll try and stick that link in the chat too for you guys. And then
Should probably come up with a bit.ly link for that.
I usually do stick it in there.
Yeah.
And then V-Flat. V-Flat has been a sponsor for us for a long time now, and this is for U.S. shipping only, but it's so gracious of them. They will ship you a V-Flat somewhere in the U.S., and that really helps your shoots. They have one side that's black, one side that's white, so you can use it as fill or as, what is it called? Like when you're taking away the light. I can't think of the term. It's like negative fill.
Negative fill. So one side's bounce, you're bouncing light. One side you're taking away light because you're not allowing light to reflect.
And then it's portable. So it used to be they were super big at one point, and then V-Flat people made them so that they can collapse, and you can put them in your car and go to a shoot. So someone will win that. And again, they also have a discount. You can get 10% off by using the code KelbyOne10 at vflatworld.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, we've also got Slick Pick, 1 year classic gallery plan. It's a retail value of $60. New customers only. But if you let us know what you want to win in the chat, someone will pick your name and we will announce the winners at the end of the show.
Yep. So if somebody's going to win all that, or one person's going to win one of those, just let us know what you want to win. Obviously, asking questions, you're automatically entered. And speaking of that, we got a couple questions that are coming in already. First from David F. is asking us, how have you guys handled a quiet studio since the VIPs came for a visit? I will say it's been interesting, right?
Yeah, well, first thing that comes to mind is that, we took some time to clean it. It was quite distraught after
that weekend.
But it was so much fun to have you guys here. I think it brought so much joy to all the crew just to be able to interact with the people that we, get to interact with on a regular basis, and then
like being face to face, in person, shooting alongside people. I love it.
So much fun for me to be able to make all those little sets for them to do photo shoots. That made me so happy to be able to provide that opportunity for people.
Yeah, I'll tell you. But at the same time, we enjoy having an audience. We enjoy having a crowd here. I wish we could all the time. In fact, we always, if anybody ever wants to come watch the grid, we always let anybody come in, any member, just contact us. If you're around the Tampa area on a Wednesday, we're going to be here.
Definitely.
So, just let us know. All right. And then Marcy's asking, why do you guys give the jib guy such a hard time? And it's Dobson. Why do we give Dobson a hard time?
Dobson.
It's all in fun. It's all in fun. Nothing. I mean, as Scott was saying, a lot of times Scott and Dobson and others, they play video games together. Yeah. So when you play video games together, you guys kind of like poke at each other and do all that stuff. So that's all it is. It's all in good fun. There's no negative. It really is just we're just messing with each other.
Yeah, I think too.
That's the thing is you probably don't see that because off air we're doing that constantly, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's just what
It's
it
like
is.
we're really like a family here, you know, and because we work together so much and for long hours and stuff, you just really get to know people well, and then we really do have a good time. So we work hard, but we also really work hard with each other. So to keep it fun and light, we joke around a lot, and
Yep.
and so really it's just, I think we do those ongoing jokes like every now and then. We find something and then you'll hear about it. Like it's like Scott's chicken and biscuits and
Yeah.
cheese whiz, or just we like find something and then it becomes like a motif, so to speak.
Yep, exactly. I mean, it's like I said, it's all just, it's a good fun, and and Dobson is awesome. He's great. So this, like, I think that's where it is. It's like it could maybe perceive that we're like, but it's
Teasing
just
him.
it's just like we're always
It's
just
really
having
like,
fun.
and it's almost like, it sounds awkward, but it's like a compliment to just give him the attention too, and just be like, "Hey, Dobbs," and
Yeah, Dobson, don't you love it? Yeah, he's like, nah.
he's here today too.
Yeah. And look at that jib work at the beginning. Perfect. It was great. Again, Juan's been giving them some tips. So, Juan's like our bar for the jib, right? So Juan's the bar that everybody has to reach. So if you don't reach Juan's level, we kind of just pick on you.
Yeah, and then at some point too, then you just exaggerate it more just to make it funny.
It's just funny.
It's like
It
another
really
thing
isn't.
when Scott's seat used to shrink,
Yep.
You got to have something fun.
Yeah, that's what it is. But yeah, no, all in good fun. Question, I think, I want to direct this question at you from Chase. What is a tip that you can give a photographer to work better with a producer? I mean, you work with photographers all the time as a
Yeah.
producer. What really helps?
I think I would say communication is a key. So the more you are able to kind of know what you want and be able to communicate that is going to be helpful. And then I think too, a producer, like a really good producer can do, obviously they can produce a shoot that you're going to want, and then what tends to happen is surprises happen along the way, like on set. So inevitably, so the more you can give them the information up front and give them time to plan, then that will allow for the surprises, for them to handle those surprises later. So an example would be like, let's say someone gets sick on the day of a shoot, and now you are down a person, and now the producer, instead of focusing on the shoot, has to go deal with finding a new makeup person or something. So the more you can kind of have a vision and know what you want, communicate that, and do it in a timely manner, then I would say that your shoot will go smoother.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what I would have pointed to is vision.
Yeah.
The clearer your creative direction can be, the closer the producer is going to get to what you want to deliver, right?
Right.
And that's really what it comes down to, is whenever we're doing a shoot, whenever I have a problem that is, it's usually on me as the photographer if I didn't correctly describe the vision of what I wanted, or the level, just like something, be it a prop, be it a location, but that's where a lot of times working with a producer, they're very good at scouting and getting you information beforehand, being able to adjust beforehand. You always want to do stuff in advance, because the other thing a producer is very good at is adapting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as a producer, you have to adapt quickly. I know part of this too, because I used to do a lot of that stuff, and it
Right.
really is like you get thrown into these situations and you have to adapt. You just have to make it work. But like you were saying, the biggest thing is just if you can get a better picture of what you're wanting, you're gonna get better results, and that's
Yeah.
the hardest. That's the hardest thing with photography a lot of times.
Yeah, like there's this, adage that you either have quality time or money, pick two.
Yes.
So if you want good quality, then you have to either have the time to produce it or money to throw at it, and so you can only pick two of those things. And so if you want to save money, then you've got to have that time in order to still have a good quality product.
Yep. All right, and then Graham has a question here. about aviation question. So, Eric, do you prefer spot or matrix metering? Well, I would say that it's the answer that I hate, which is it depends, right? That's the Rick Salmon thing, right? But it really does depend. However, I would say in most cases, a matrix or an evaluative metering is what I'm going to be in. The reason being is I'm just looking at the scene of when I'm shooting, it's more about having a raw file that has no clipping in the shadows, no clipping in the highlights. And a lot of times then I'm using my exposure compensation to compensate for what my camera can't do well evaluatively. Like, for example, if it's a very bright sunny day, I'll a lot of times take out some, so I'll compensate down, because the camera will always make decisions to go a little hotter than I would. Now I could do spot metering, but then spot metering, if I don't nail the spot exactly and I go to a bright part, then the camera's going to fail. So the reason I pick matrix or an evaluative metering is more because my job is really composition with aviation, with action. I'm assuming, again, we're talking aviation photography where we are tracking fast moving objects. If it was still and it's sitting on the ground, that's easy. Like, anybody can do that, right? But when you get down to like really action, a jet coming by at 600 miles an hour, just ripping by you, like, it's more, my focus wants to be on the composition, on the framing, on the focus. And I want to be also, I'm so focused on my panning technique that I want to keep my subject moving at the same rate of my pan, so I get that sharp, sharp, sharp plane, right? I want that plane to be sharp and the background to be blurred out, that kind of stuff. So it's really, my least concern is I just want the camera to pick up the best settings that are going to set me up for the best results in post. Because I shoot a lot of time, and that's shooting raw, I shoot for post. Half of, I feel like, the photo is the post. I think that's where a lot of people do miss out nowadays, is they don't shoot with the intent of they want to go into post. A lot of photographers that I know that, again, that I look up to or love their work, when you get to know them, like, you get down to it, they are the same way. They just want the best, cleanest file to start with. And they care less about, like, they want the camera to make decisions for them that they don't I don't want to have to make a decision of, do I even need to switch metering modes? Like, that's not something I would do. Now, again, if it was a static and there was something that I wanted to make sure the exposure was right on, then changing my metering mode would be fine. But in action, I'm pretty much always in some kind of like 3D or matrix metering or evaluative metering, whatever the camera manufacturers like to call it, different things. So, all right.
We'll keep the questions coming.
Yeah.
I see some coming in, and we're going to come back to them because right now we got to take a break. So drop your questions in the chat.
And look at that jib work. Right on there. There we go.
Hello, my name is John Dukes, and welcome to Washington, D.C., one of the most fascinating cities in all of the United States. Come join me and Larry Becker as we take you on a tour, a journey through one of the most fascinating cities in the world. We're going to look at some of the best tourist attractions of Washington, D.C., and also some of those under-the-radar spots that the tourists don't know about. We're going to have a lot of fun in this class as I talk with you about how to get some of the most epic shots, where to position your camera, what gear to use. We're going to cover a whole lot of stuff, but mostly we're going to have a whole lot of fun. So thank you so much for watching A Traveler's Guide to Washington, D.C. with John Dukes and Larry Becker on KelbyOne.com.
This class is a photographer's guide to Budapest. Now, I've learned a lot from my friend Scott about photography, location shoots, all kinds of stuff like that. Great restaurants, right?
Yes.
This is a fun class.
Oh, we're going to go to 17 different locations. If you're thinking of going to Hungary, and it is a wonderful, super photogenic, very, very fun city, and you want to come back with amazing pictures, 17 places, Larry. I'm going to take them to 17 locations. I'm going to say, here's where to shoot. Here's what the shot looks like. I've got some behind the scene photos. I've got maps to show you where to stand, where I took the picture, different angles. I'm going to give you insider tips. I'm even going to tell you where to eat. I got some good recommendations for restaurants because it's a foodie town. Woo, there's some good stuff there. And you know what else? Hungary is very inexpensive. As a country, it's one of the least expensive places that you can travel to. You're going to be shocked at how little things cost once you're there, and you're going to have a great time. And I'm going to make sure of it. I'm going to put you in the perfect spot to come back with killer shots that are make your friends so jealous that you'll probably won't be friends anymore. That's where it's going. All right, where do you find this class? It's exclusively at KelbyOne.com.
This segment of The Grid is brought to you by Canon.
2, 1, 0. We're back. There we go. All right. Great job, Dobson. Yeah, we were giving him praise on the break. We felt bad, you know. So, all right. So, got some more questions coming in, and just go ahead and ask. We're going to try to get through as many as we can today. But somebody was asking, Christina, how do you guys select which photos go into blind critiques? You must get so many.
Well, I think too, they were wanting to know how we select our classes.
Well, that's another one.
Yeah.
I have that question.
So the blind critiques, we usually we try to do one once a month, and we have Scott post on his either Twitter or Facebook, and he puts a Dropbox link that you can upload your photos to. And before the show, he'll gather them all together, and he really tries to get through as many as he can. Yeah,
that's what we do. We try to get through as many as we can. There is something that we started this month because we were talking about it. There's certain photos that we kind of feel like they're just so good that like we can't really help a lot. So we've kind of saved those for the end of the show. We tried that new format and seemed like people like that. The other thing is there are some that we go through and either people only submitted one photo. It's hard to just talk about one photo, so we can't do that if they don't submit at least 3 photos. Sometimes we've done it with 2, but usually 3 photos. So there's that. And then there's just a lot of photos, so we have to randomly select. You know, we'll just go through and randomly select out of the folder, and then that's who goes on. Now we do go through them really quick to make sure there's certain photos that we don't show because we're not going to be able to help them at all. Like there are, and I get it. We're all at different stages in our career, but there are people that I feel like some people suffer from that thing of everybody's told them their photography's good, and then you're like, if you just come on and destroy it, you know, but there's nothing we can really say. They're usually snapshots. Now we do show some of those sometimes because we think we can help. Right. You know, like these are snapshots, but here you're on the right path. Or the other thing that happens a lot of times, I think, with people's photography is they have it all technically right, but there's that's what we say, like there's the nothing burgers, right? Where it's like it's all right, but there's just nothing here. Like not right? The umph. Yeah, there's just not anything special here. So Next, Grumpy Mike has a question. I love the name. Can you discuss some of the benefits of the VIP program? So maybe you want to start there?
Yeah, sure. So just last year we started a VIP program. You know, we have 2 tiers in our membership, and we were like, what could we do to give the people that have been part of our program for a really long time something even more, and something that can help, you know, like maybe they've learned as much as they can, and now where else do they go, and how can we like push them over that edge, take them to that next level. And so we started this VIP program, and oh my gosh, it is the best bang for your buck, because you get our pro membership, you get access to every single conference we do, plus you pretty much get access to Scott and Erik. We do a podcast and a coaching session once a month. They're 2 separate things.
And totally different than what we're doing now, because it's via Zoom, so it's face-to-face. So we're interacting. I love it because of that.
And I love it too, because then we get to really like get to know our community in a much more, I guess, intimate way, and understand the person, but their photography and what their goals are, and then we can kind of help them reach those goals. And then on top of that, you also get to schedule a portfolio review with Scott or Erik.
And those have been awesome. They've been great. But I think another thing with the VIP that's so interesting, and when we set out to do this, is we realized that there's certain things that you can do through classes, and there's certain things you can do through different mediums, but there's a point at which you reach where if you're like, I just want to kind of like actually do those professional things, those next level photography things. Like, for example, a big thing that happened this year with our members, there was a lot of the VIP members, and we designed curriculum around building their portfolio. But not just, we can teach you a class, but we actually walked through and went through all the stages of it, curating it, to the point at which now I think of last week, I think 80% of us had them done, and there's like 20% that didn't, and we're kind of trying to get to 100% before the end of the year, because that's really the goal, is to all these things that you wouldn't do, we actually went through and did deep dives and sessions into how to get that stuff done, which is something that it doesn't apply to everybody. It really applies when you're at that point where you want to kind of take your photography career to that next level. That's really what the VIP is for. And it's been great because the members, like the VIP members, like their work is outstanding. Their photography is amazing. But they didn't have all that's what we figured out, is they didn't have all these other things, and that's why we built this program.
Yeah, it's like making them take their photography seriously and how to build themselves as a photographer. Yeah,
we're actually, like, really, it's kind of the VIP programs pushing people to that. Like, I feel like that's what we're trying to do, is like nudge.
Yeah, and it's kind of like making them become accountable for it.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. But then at the same time, what's great about it is, like Christina said, you get access to everything. So it's one of those things where once you join it, you kind of get access to everything. And now we do limit it. It's not something that everybody can join. It only happens once a year. In the fall, it's coming up. There'll be another class that'll be a new VIP class. This class will be graduating, and then a new class will be coming in. So if you do want to there's a wait list. If you go over to, I think it's KelbyOne.com/VIP, I think there is a wait list for next year, which will be coming up in November, I believe, is when we'll have that. So check it out if you want. And then what was cool is I think maybe where the comment came, we had the VIPs down here to Tampa for a weekend retreat. So we had 3 days where we basically we did deep dives into things. We went out on photo shoots together. We ate meals together. We just had like a fun weekend, and it was just a really cool experience.
And then you get this community of people that support you and also back you up in terms of being able to get feedback from them and just learn from each other.
All right, so I've got a question here from Belinda. And Belinda's asking, what's the best lens for shooting interior homes and businesses from an architectural aspect? And I think for this, if you're looking at an architectural aspect from straight lines, very true to form, that's where a tilt shift lens is going to be your best thing, because that's going to allow the building, you know, in those small spaces not to bend, kind of bow out. However, not everybody likes that style. In fact, a lot of people, like, they want some of that grand thing. So like for real estate, for example, or interiors of homes, sometimes you can benefit from more of a wider angle lens to make a property look bigger than it is. A lot of realtors want that. They want the space to look bigger than it is. I mean, that's part of photography, is we do, photography can distort reality, right? And in fact, that's all photography does.
Or enhance it.
Well, yeah, enhances it. But it is distorting reality. It's taking a three-dimensional world and putting it on a two-dimensional plane. So to answer your question, it really matters on what style, but if you want it to be more technically accurate architectural, that's where a tilt shift lens will help. If you want to make it look more grand or wider, a wide angle, you know, more in that 14 to 24 will do a lot of that grandness and making stuff look a little bigger on the interiors. That's why cathedrals look really good with like a 14 millimeter or something. And cathedrals, they look way bigger than they are at that point.
And another technique I saw from one of our instructors, her name was Padma, and I think we have a class on it. It's like vertoramas. So she would, for like cathedrals, do like a vertorama. And,
vertical panorama.
Yes, a vertical panorama. And then that gave it the whole, you know, image that you couldn't capture just with a regular shot. I do see one quick question, and then I know we do have to take a break. But Sharon B., I see you're asking, have either of you photographed Acadia National Park? I do know that we're going to be making a class out there. We have a national park series that we've been working on. And so we will be having a class on where to shoot in Acadia Park sometime this year.
Yeah, and I've only been there for a day, so I can't really speak to it too much. There's great lighthouses out there. I mean, there's great environments, places to shoot, but I haven't been there long enough to really dive into it. But that's a great point. Is we've got that class coming out later on this year, so that'll be a great resource. Of course, it might not work out for timing, but it'll be there once it's there.
So hopefully you can wait. But we do have another break to take, and then we'll come back and take all of your questions.
All right, when you come back from your trip, you want to have amazing pictures, right? You want to come back and have your friends go, where did you take this? Where did this come from? You want pictures that are going to wow people. And I'm going to show you how to do that in my brand new course called How to Take Travel Photos Like a Pro. We're going to go to the beautiful island of Santorini, Greece, where I'm going to take you through all of the techniques you need to know, what camera gear to take, what to leave at home, what the settings should be. I'm going to give you all of my favorite tricks. We're going to go all over the island. You're going to learn all kinds of stuff, and it's not just about shooting in Santorini. It doesn't matter where you're going. You're going to take these same techniques, you're going to apply them to your travel photography, and you're going to get the best travel photos you've ever gotten. So where does this amazing class happen? It's exclusively at KelbyOne.com.
This segment of The Grid is brought to you by Platypod, the world's most compact tripod base.
All right, we're
Welcome
back.
back.
We got tons of questions here, so let's jump right in.
Yeah, but can I just say really quick, I see a few people chiming in. Matt says, I love being one of the luckiest people in the world to be in the VIPs. And then Stuart Greenberg says, the KelbyOne community is second to none. We are also family and even have a weekly Zoom meeting. The Zoom session is on a summer break, but we'll be back soon. It's a little known but wonderful benefit of the KelbyOne membership. And we have this amazing community on KelbyOne. So if you aren't a member, come check us out at KelbyOne.com because we have tons of classes, but I think what we're learning too is just that how much people value that community that we have.
Yeah, and there's a community. If you go to right over the side, you got community. It's community.kelbyone.com. Once you're a member, people are in there interacting, and like there you go. There's a community live happening. There's a right down there, that second one. So there's like a Zoom session that they all meet up. They've gone on trips together. I've seen them like going around the world, lining up stuff. So it's a great place to get connected with other photographers. I think that's another thing that kind of takes your photography up is when you're hanging out with other photographers, when you're shooting with other photographers. Photography can be a very isolating hobby because it's one of those things where it's not like going out to play golf and you play with other people. It's like it can be very isolating at times, but I will say it's much more enjoyable when you connect with other people and do it together.
Yep.
So,
all right.
So junk email, great name again, is asking a serious question. Didn't go into our spam. And he says, what are your thoughts about buying a lens listed as parts, repair, and sending it back to the manufacturer for repair? Do you think this is cost effective and would save money? I think it would be a roll of the dice. I think it would be a roll of the dice. There's certain parts with a lens, and there's certain, because it's the labor that goes into it. Like repairing cameras, we have that when we send cameras. Like we have a lot of equipment and all around the studio, and stuff breaks. People drop stuff, something happens, trip and fall. They drop into a lake. We've had all that stuff
fall
happen.
Into the Badlands.
Yeah, we had all that happen, and it fall into a cactus, all this good stuff, right? And when you send it in, it's the labor to repair it. The part itself is not so much the expensive part. It's if the part that's broken is interior to the lens and it needs to come all apart, and how much time it's going to take to repair that, which is not cheap, that labor, that's where it can get way expensive. So it's really a roll of the dice. If it's just a matter of like, hey, the little sensor board needs to be replaced on the back of the lens, that contact, yeah, it's probably going to be a cheap replacement. They're not going to take it apart or anything. But until you know, what is wrong with it, that would be my problem.
Yeah, and I think there's so many good programs out there. Like, I think Adorama and B&H sell used equipment. And so I would probably err on the side of purchasing a used piece of equipment because they really do have their technicians kind of scope everything out, and they're going to sell you something that they know is going to work well for you, so you can get it discounted. As
long as, again, that's with the ratings, right? Like there are some, then I think that's what, because like KEH and MBP will sell parts lenses or parts cameras. And I've always, or then you'll see it on eBay, where it's like somebody's selling something, it's like it's broken, but it doesn't work. Now, there's been times where I've lucked out. I have lucked out because I will buy cameras because one of the things that I shoot with rockets can be very volatile, and I might lose a lot of equipment. So sometimes I won't. I had one where I had, like, back in the day, like it was like a 5D Mark II. This was like 10 years, or almost 10 years ago. And somebody said it was broken, and I believe it was like a garage sale or something like that. And I kind of was looking at it, and the problem was it just wasn't, the mirror wasn't actuating right. So the mirror on the flip up, you couldn't see through the viewfinder. But if you turned on live view, it worked fine. So I went, well, I'll take a risk. And then I just used the camera in live view and didn't even get it repaired. And so, I mean, there's times when it can work, but I think it's a roll of the dice. Yeah. Especially if you don't have it in your hand and you don't know what is wrong with it.
Yeah.
So, Chris is asking a question that I think, Christina, you'd be better to answer this one, of when you find a prospective model, what process do you have to get started with collaborating before the shoot?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, I definitely have some tips of things that you can do. My, I guess, rule of thumb would be, like, if you have some kind of specific look in mind, then obviously you're going to need to talk to them about your costume and makeup and things like that and what you're going to want. There's some things that you can do to save money as well. So if you don't have the budget for like a hair and makeup person or a stylist, what you can do is have the model come in like hair and makeup ready. And what you want to ask them to do is blow their hair out and put on what I usually will call date night makeup. So then that way they have a little bit of, blush on and just powder on their face to help not look oily. And typically I'll tell them to bring lots of lifestyle clothing. And I'll say, do not bring clothes that have logos or patterns, because a lot of times the patterns will conflict with the camera, but bring bright kind of colors, not just black, white, and gray. And then you want them to have lots of options. So that way, when you do have a model in front of your lens, you can get multiple looks. And another thing you can do too is ask for them to bring a tube top, because then you can also grab a beauty shot while they're there, and make sure to ask them to bring some kind of scrunchie or hair tie, so then that way you can have them pull their hair back if you need it. And then a lot of times too, to get multiple looks, if you start with basic makeup, then you can always have them add on. So then you could like do a bright lip, or then do some other type of makeup look and build onto it as you go. So I think that, sometimes you don't even really talk to a model until they actually like show up on set. So then obviously you give them the instructions. Like if they're working for an agent, you'll give them all these instructions like I just mentioned, but then when they show up, I think that's the key, is to build a rapport with them, so that way they feel comfortable with you. And one of the things that I noticed too is when you're on set, if you're just taking pictures and not really giving them feedback, then they'll start questioning themselves and be in their head like, am I doing good? So another key thing is to make sure you're communicating with them and talking to them during the shoot, so that way they feel comfortable and they feel good about what they're doing. And even sometimes showing them a photo, like, here, this is looking so great, and showing them what you do like, so that they keep doing more of that. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, that was great. I thought it was great. A lot of great information in there. And then Warren's asking, do you recommend storing images on an external drive rather than your computer's hard drive? If so, do you recommend using an SSD or a hard disk drive? Thanks. I would definitely recommend, just given that images tend to build up and take up a lot of space, that they're stored on an external drive. I would always recommend that an SSD for, like, if you're working drive, then you can have an archive on a slower drive. So like I'll have like recent files that I'm working on an SSD. Our video department does the same with like video files. Like we're working off of an external SSD, very fast connection, and then archiving to slower drives. So when I'm done or I need to move it somewhere, I'm going to move it to that external drive. In our cases, a lot of times, like mine's like a Synology drive that then syncs up and gets backed up. Like that's where it moves. But locally, yes, an SSD. It's just the SSDs are more expensive, so there is that. It does give you that speed, but it is a little bit more expensive. However, the hard disks are so fast anymore with photos that it's not as big of a deal. Video is a different question. Like
Right.
They need an SSD drive just for the, if you're working with 4K files like we're working with, and all of our cameras like shooting like a more of an uncompressed format, you just need that speed. So for photography, it really doesn't matter, but you are going to have that advantage of SSDs just going to be faster.
Yep.
Chase is asking, as a producer, can you share a story when a shoot or project went completely wrong. You could change the names and faces of the innocent to keep them protected.
Oh, which story should I share? No, luckily, I feel like most things go right, especially if you plan appropriately.
Like me
However,
calling you and saying, Jason fell into a cactus.
Yeah, sometimes things do happen. And so one of the things that popped into my mind when I saw this question is we had a shoot. We called it like we were doing a safari shoot, but we weren't actually going to the safari. So we were making this farm look like a safari.
Oh, I remember
so we
this
had
one.
this big white tent. We had to cut out the front and the back so you could see through it. We were actually in a field with cows. And but
and we were moving the cows out of the way so they weren't in the frame.
Yeah, and there was like all this grass that made it feel like safari-like. But that shoot, we planned it. Obviously, when you do an outside shoot, you can't always control the weather. And so we planned it, and it was a day that it was about to rain, but it was like you couldn't tell whether it was actually going to hit the area we were going to. And the drive was, I don't know, like an hour away from our studio. And so we had, 15 or so people that had to go be on the shoot, and everyone drove out there. And then we show up, and this big dark cloud just appears and then the cows all start running. That was the first time. So this photo shoot, we actually tried to do 3 different times. And the first time
that was just the first time.
That was just the first time. And then the second time, I think a tornado hit that day. So we were like, okay, we're not doing it now. And like each time you have a model scheduled to come. So she's cleared out her calendar for you and the extra crew that you're asking to come help with. And then finally on the 3rd try, the weather cooperated and we got the shot we wanted and everything ended up really good. But that one was a crazy shoot because I had to produce it 3 different times.
Yep, I remember that one though. But we ended up getting the shot.
We did. We ended up getting the shot.
We ended up getting the shot, and part of that is with production is you just gotta be flexible.
Yeah.
But if you know the shot that you want and you know the conditions that you want, you just have to go for it.
Just don't plan it in the rainy season of Florida.
Yeah, just don't plan it in the rainy season.
There was
in Florida.
another one too that kind of popped into mind, and it's a good little tip for any of you that are interested in never working with models. And one time we found a model. We were super excited to work with her. We asked her to send a selfie to us, and this is a little trick you can do is, before you work with someone.
Yeah, not just their portfolio. Have them take a selfie that. Like as you're hiring them,
recent photo, so that way you can see what they look like. And so we had someone do that, and we were like, perfect, come just like that. Well, the girl had super curly hair, and she showed up, and she didn't have her hair blown out like the photo. And then it pretty much, we took some pictures of her, but then we ended up having to redo that shoot because it wasn't the look that we were going for.
Yeah, it's like you're going for a specific look, or you'll have a model that'll have a portfolio, they'll send the pictures, and now she had long flowing hair, and now she cut it off short.
Yes, so
that's
always
another reason
ask.
to ask, because,
Yes.
or just like anything like that. You want to have not only the portfolio shots, but you want a recent shot, and like you said, it could just be, I just need a selfie,
Yeah, a little selfie.
Yeah, just so we can see current. Yep. So we gotta take another break here in a second. But before we take a break, how about we answer this one from Teresa?
Sure.
How do you decide the classes you put on KelbyOne?
Well, a lot of times, we get feedback from our members. We like to make classes that we know our members are going to be into and that they're hungry for. And so, a lot of it is, I would say, like market research and
Yeah, like seeing what people are interested in, what people are connecting with, what other classes people are connecting with on the membership, just what's trending too sometimes.
And strong instructors too, like people that are really good at what they do and can make a competent class in that subject.
Yep.
Like I noticed, for example, when COVID hit, I felt like a lot of our curriculum started changing into things that were related to outdoor photography. So then we were like really getting into travel and wildlife or
being outdoors.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a bunch of factors. And then there's also the factor of we also want to, we want to produce classes that we'd want to share with the world,
Yeah.
Obviously we have certain things that we do like to do, and there's also certain things, again, that we hear feedback from our members. We also send out member surveys, is a big one, like asking for feedback. So we do that at least once a year, if not multiple times a year.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of different ways.
Well, and the other thing too is we like to stay current. So if there's been any kind of major updates with the software or changes that would, like when AI came out, then we are like ready to do a class so we can keep you up to date and cutting edge.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we've got a few more questions here. If you got any other final questions, just leave them in the chat. We'll throw them up.
Hi, I'm Richard Burnaby, and welcome to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I'm excited to show you some of my favorite places, including Cades Cove, Klingman's Dome, the Foothills Parkway, sunrises, sunsets, rivers, waterfalls, all my favorite places, how I shoot them, and some of my favorite techniques. So come join me on my latest KelbyOne class.
I am a portrait and wedding photographer based in Valencia, Spain.
I do mainly commercial and editorial photography, and I retouch up to 100 photos a month.
We shoot almost every day for all kinds of clients, such as commercial, beauty, and fashion. And we retouch our work more often, like every other day.
I used to spend over 1 hour for one photo.
If we want professional results, we must remove skin blemishes, do micro dodge and burn, highlight eyes, whiten teeth, and even reduce wrinkles in clothes. And this can easily take me up to 2 hours of work for each photo.
So when I saw that there's a plugin for Photoshop that helps you retouch quicker, I was eager to get my hands on it.
I read many feedbacks about it, and I found a lot of positive reviews, which made me to consider buying my first plugin.
One of the challenges we have at the end of a session or wedding is to achieve an edition in our photograph that look natural. This is where retouch for me has become a game changer.
I love the feature that you can pick how much effect it has on your photo, and you can adjust it accordingly to your style.
I saved a lot of time and always end up having amazing result with my work.
I am extremely happy with the quality.
Now I am more efficient and have more time to spare with my family.
This segment of The Grid is brought to you by B&H Photo, the professional source since 1973.
All righty, we're back, and we were just talking on the break. I think I've seen a couple comments, and it is an interesting one that we again talking about how do we pick classes, how do we do this. Like one of the comments, I've picked up comments and themes like we don't have we have classes where we talk about this within the class, like producing especially within the class or picking models, but we don't have a class that's just dedicated to that. Right. So maybe we should, we were talking on the break that maybe we should look into that, because again, that's how we work. We're hearing your feedback, and I agree with you. Like there's great information here, and it's stuff that we just take for granted that we just know that stuff. Like,
Right.
yeah, send me the selfie pic so you can figure out if you cut your hair off.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to, pick your portfolio looks great and then suddenly you show up and it's like, I mean, we've had stuff work out, but it's if you implement those little tips, you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
So, cool.
Well, Bill has a question for you, Eric.
All right.
He's asking, he just read about pixel shift shooting and wondered what your take on it is. Do you use it? And if so, what types of shooting does it work best for?
All right. I do not use it, but I know what it is, and there's probably a reason I don't use it. Megapixels are not my problem. Like, I never really have a megapixel problem. Pixel shifting will a lot of times increase your megapixels by shifting. It does increase a little bit of detail as well, but I never have a problem with detail as well as I'm shooting. So it really matters. I think some of the times there's that misconception that I need more megapixels or I need more detail in my files. If you feel like that's the case, I would just make sure before, are you implementing all the techniques that are proper to make sure you're getting a sharp shot to begin with, or you're getting the highest resolution shot to begin with, then going into the pixel shifting, because that's what it is. It basically shifts your RGB channels around to create, like, instead of getting like I don't know, let's just say a certain camera is getting you 40 megapixels and then it'll shoot 4 or 5 images, put them together, and suddenly you have a 120 megapixel image. Like, that's what it's kind of doing, which is cool and it's nice. I don't know. I mean, again, I've had stuff run on sides of buildings in aerospace lobbies that are like 12 feet or 20 feet, and it comes from a 20 megapixel or 40 megapixel camera. So it's not a problem, especially with AI tools now and upscalers and then sharpening tools. So, but I could see where maybe if you were going to those large formats and you had, because a lot of times I'm doing that afterwards, that maybe if you had like a large format up close, because billboards are, like, everybody thinks like, well, I need a medium format camera because I'm going on a billboard.
Yeah.
Like, if you've ever walked up to a billboard,
Right.
like the pixels are like sizes of coins. Like, they're huge because you're so far away from them. You don't really need that much resolution.
Which, speaking of AI, you just reminded me that I'm so excited. We've got Photoshop World coming up in September. And some of the classes that I've talked to instructors that are going to be part of it are going to be so much fun and really help with some of these types of questions that have been coming into and how to handle situations. And one of which I can't wait to see is Terry White's keynote presentation, because he's going to be showing some of the new stuff that Photoshop can do. Sometime end of September, we're having Photoshop World, and if you go to photoshopworld.com, you can check out all the cool instructors that will be there and the classes that they're going to be teaching. And it's 3 days full, jam-packed of all different kinds of classes on the up-and-coming techniques and different things you can do.
Yes, and what's great about it is, unlike other conferences where you might go in person and then you're going to one of those sessions, the way we're doing it now, you're getting access to all 3 tracks, all days, and then you get an archive of that for an entire year. So it's one of those things that it lives with you for an entire year. So you'll be able to see all those sessions afterwards. So I got some rocket questions in here.
Yes,
which I'm always going to answer rocket questions. Charles is asking, what are the best settings for Vulcan launch shots, not engine shots? My last ones were blown out by the solids, right? So first, the distinction between me with rockets is going to be day versus night. I know when you say Vulcan, that was a night launch and with solids. So night launch with solids, your camera was probably, or you and your camera and the combination of what's going on probably is where it got blown out. The one thing is, during the day, I tend to kind of treat it like I do an aviation shoot, where I don't shoot in manual mode, even though I can shoot in manual mode and I have no problems with manual mode, but I would rather be concerned about the framing. So during the day, I'd just be in either a shutter or an aperture priority, mattering on what I want to do. Shutter is I need to control shutter speed for freezing. Aperture is I need to control depth of field. That's just the two modes. At night, I think the problem that you might be getting into is the camera, where we were talking about metering before, it's probably looking at the scene and metering it and seeing, well, it's really dark up here and it's really bright up down here, because those solid rocket motors are super bright. So it sees dark in the corner, it sees light here. That's where having a metering mode that actually is more centered on where the brightest part of the image will actually help you. Like we were talking about before, because at night your camera is probably just trying to evaluate the whole scene, usually, because people don't change it from that mode, and then it's evaluating the whole scene, and it's brightening up that area because it thinks it needs the corner dark or brighter, but the corner's dark because it's at night. So that's where settings come in, and I think that's probably what's happening there. If not, what I would suggest at night is keeping your ISO lower than you think you should, keeping your shutter speed higher than you think it would, and keeping your f-stop higher than you think it would. I think for that Vulcan launch, I was at like 100 ISO f8 or f11 at like 1/1000th of over of a second. And if you think about that, that would be at night. You would never use those settings. It would be way too dark, but that's where it is it's all balancing that. Now, if you wanted to use like an automatic mode, because that's the hard thing, is if you don't know what settings to dial in, this rocket's only going off for a few seconds, so you can it can mess you up, right? Because you only got 10 seconds to figure out the exposure.
Yeah, it's not like you can take a test shot.
That's where doing some kind of metering mode that's more in the center, and then giving yourself a little bit more of a negative exposure value, right? So telling your camera, because cameras are kind of dumb when it gets at night. They really don't have good judgment. So giving it a little bit more of a latitude down, so giving it a negative exposure value, as well as doing a more center-weighted metering, which will help. As long as you're going to frame up the rocket more in the center of the shot, which usually you are, because you're so far away from it, you're going to crop later anyways. You know, I mean, even if you have the longest of long lens at a distance, you're still going to crop in on it. So I would keep it in the center and do your cropping creatively later, and then just do a center weighted or spot metering kind of more in the middle, and keep that spot on the brightest part, and then it'll meter good.
That's good advice.
There you go. There is actually, he had a follow-up of how do you just dehaze long-distance launch shots, because this is a problem. I'm going to say that this is going to happen more during the day. Like the Starlink launch yesterday was shooting through fog. The humidity was so thick and this does happen. Like, it's very thick and foggy. I would say that your best friend here is the dehaze in Lightroom or in Camera Raw. But sometimes that can't do enough. So then what it is how do I use the haze to my advantage, right? How do I tell the story through the haze? Like what will happen too with a rocket as it's lifting off, it's hazy down here on the bottom, but as it rises above the haze, it'll get clearer. So maybe I would keep the launch kind of, the ground kind of foggy, and wait until the rocket gets up in the more clear part, and then compose my shot that way. That kind of helps as well, you know. But there is just the dehaze filter in Photoshop or in Lightroom and Photoshop. Having that dehaze slider really helps. The only thing you got to do with the dehaze slider is sometimes that dehaze will add a little bit too much green and a little too much blue to your image, because when it dehazes it, so then you got to correct that later in post. The other thing you could do is you can punch up contrast, but that's kind of what dehaze is doing. So that would be my suggestion there. Is my bigger suggestion is work with it, don't work against it. Like, embrace it. How do I embrace the environment? Fog is a great thing, but you have to embrace it and you have to go with it.
Well, and I think too, another thing Erik does is he has more than one camera set up too, because you know, it's such a quick event that's going on and happening, and so if you have extra camera bodies, then try different things.
Yep, that is true. If you have different things, and you know what, cell phones are an amazing second camera. I'm telling you, I've shot some great rocket shots with cell phones. So
Look
Yeah.
at this question from Rami coming in.
All right.
He said, Rami Kazemi, hello.
Hey, Rami.
He says, I got a question. How do you not run into a cactus when you shoot in the desert?
Well, I don't know, because it seems like every time we go shooting, there's always a cactus involved, you know?
I could answer that. Just don't be Jason.
Yeah, don't
no,
be
I'm
Jason.
just kidding.
Yeah.
Just be really careful because some of them will jump out at you.
They do. They
So-
jump out at you. It seems like they always are jumping out at you, and they're always stinging you. But it's worth it. It's worth it. Those cactus are so cool because, like especially the cholla cactus, which is the one that unfortunately Jason fell into. They catch the light really nice at sunrise and sunset, and at night with like the Milky Way or the moon, they glow. It's really cool. But I'm telling you, they're those barbs. Like once they go in you too, they have like hooks on them. So it's just really bad. It's just really bad.
my gosh.
I'm telling you that shoot that Jason fell into that cactus, it was just such a blessing that he had a backpack on and he had his hat on. Because if he didn't have both of those, we probably were calling to get either helicoptered out or something.
I mean, what a trooper.
Yeah.
I swear, every time I come on this show, somehow that
Somehow
gets
that
brought
comes
up.
up. Well, it was a nightmare. All right, Herb's asking, what is your favorite way to transfer your photos from your iPhone to an external drive while on location or vacation? Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Well, mahalo. So, I'm going to speak to it from a Mac perspective. From a Mac perspective, there's actually, now you can just go into, you can plug I always like to plug in because it's faster. That's also a way that I guarantee that I'm transferring the raw files, right? Because sometimes through Wi-Fi, if you don't have the right settings, it's not transferring, it's transferring a JPEG or a low resolution RAW. Plugging it in, mounting it up, it'll now show up in Finder. You'll actually see your phone over there and you can browse it. But there's also an app on the Mac called Image Capture, and it comes on every Mac. And when you launch Image Capture, it's kind of like the same thing as the Lightroom's like import dialog or something. It's just going to pull them off, and then I can put them on my external hard drive. So that's what I do, is I use Image Capture, and I use it hardwired, much faster, much more reliable. I don't have to worry about Wi-Fi or any of that. I don't know if you have it.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
A lot of my pictures just stay on my phone.
Yeah. Now, I do back up my phone as well. I have Amazon Prime has Amazon Prime Photos if you have Amazon Prime, and that will back up your photos if you're on Wi-Fi. So my photos are constantly getting backed up.
Yeah, and I
there
use
as well.
Google, I think, to double
Yeah.
back up mine.
Yeah, so just make sure it's offloading somewhere. That is, make sure it's going somewhere where it's going up to be, offloaded.
Tim has a question. He's
Yeah.
saying, how are the grid prize winners chosen?
Well-
So usually whoever's doing the chat and giving us the comments and stuff will pick the winners. We have 3 streams. One is YouTube, one is Facebook, and then one is our KelbyOne members website. And we usually try to pick from all 3. We don't have any kind of method or anything like that. It does help if you let us know what you want, and that way you can get selected. We try to give it to a variety of people and not the same person all the time. But it can just depend. I've also picked just if someone has a nice comment or something to say, I'll be like, oh, that person deserves a prize. Or sometimes it'll just be, someone that just asks, for the prize.
A good question,
and I'm like, hey,
or something like that
this
too.
person, or a good question. So it's just being active and participating in the chat.
Yep.
So speaking of which, Eric, do you want to give away the prizes?
Yeah, we can give away the prizes, and then we got a couple more questions. Yeah.
Okay.
But go ahead, give them away.
Okay. So with that said, Tim, you are our lucky winner for the Platypod grip this week.
You must have asked a good question.
Yeah. And then Moose Peterson's takeoff book is going to Sharon B. Scott's travel photography book will go to Bobby from Maryland. And On One No Noise 2024, we're giving it to you, Natalie Jones. Retouch for Me The Mattifier app is going to go to Tracy Sholin, and the V flat is going to Leon Smith. And finally, we've got Slick Pick, and we're going to give that out to Jill Robino this week. So in order to claim your prize, please email gridprize@KelbyOne.com and claim by this Friday.
All right. I got another question here from Hal. Hal's asking, he's watching the rocket launch from Orlando. Plans going to launch this Monday early. I want to know the best settings for night shots with my full frame camera. So I imagine if you're in Orlando, if you're not going over close to the Cape and you're in Orlando, we've now established that you're probably going to be doing what we would call a night streak shot, where you're actually going to show the rocket progressing over a period of time. So that would be like you're leaving your camera open. In this case, you know, I don't know. Like, the thing is, that launch, I believe you're talking about, is the one that's going to launch early in the morning. I don't know if it's before or if it's at night. I don't think that one's at night. So if it wasn't at night, I would say get closer, because you need to be closer. If it's not at night, you're just not going to see it the minute that sun's up. You'll see it. It'll be very faint off into the distance. And if you would have driven that 100 miles, you would have saw it really up close. So during the day, getting close. At night, showing that progression, we're just leaving our camera open for a period of time. I've been 300-400 miles away from the launch pad and caught a streak shot. So you can, and I've seen great streak shots from up the coast if it's going in the right direction, like up in Jacksonville or Hilton Head, or all the way up in like the Outer Banks. I've seen really cool stuff all the way up there. So it just matters where it's going. So, but I would say with that, the best settings for a night shoot, and that's where I don't know, maybe I haven't kept up with it. If it is a night shoot, then from Orlando, it would just be keeping your camera open for a period of time. You have a mid-range f-stop, let's say f8 to f11. You're going to do mattering on how much light pollution you have in your area, a lower ISO if it's higher light pollution, a little higher of an ISO if it's a lower light pollution. I would always recommend getting to a lower light pollution spot, like someone where you don't have a lot of light blaring into your scene, so you can see the rocket streak a little clearer. You can still have light, but you're going to want to expose it. You know, if it's that's a Falcon 9 launch, you're going to expose it for that whole first stage, and that's almost 3 minutes. So you got to think you're going to go almost 3 minutes. That's why you're going to use like an F8 or F11. That's why you're going to use a lower ISO, because you're going to let the rocket streak through. And what that's going to do is do the same thing as Star Trail. It's going to trail through your image because it's bright, and then your base exposure. So the way you test that out for a streak shot, if you get there early, set up your settings to what I just told you, take the scene. If the scene is just a little bit dark on the exposure over that 3 minutes, you're going to be golden. If it's like really dark, you need to raise your ISO. You need to add, or you need to lower your shutter speed. You need to let in more light. So that's all it is. It's just balancing out those couple things. But usually, mattering on how far you are, those settings of like F8, ISO, let's say low light pollution, ISO 400, and then bulb mode, which you just go when you see the light, turn it on, and when you see the light go off, you turn it off. That's it. And then setting your focus to infinity or close to infinity.
And then post it so we can see.
Yeah, I would love to see it. So
I think that wraps up our show. Do you have any more questions, Eric?
I'm looking. Sam was asking about planning a trip to Sun and Fun for the first time. Any tips from Eric? I would say if you're planning a trip from Sun and Fun for the first time, it really matters on. I always love getting there early. It's a long show. It's like Oshkosh, where it's a longer show. My photography only gets better, or my aviation photography only gets better the more I shoot, especially because we don't do it it's not something you do every weekend or every time. So what's nice about Sun and Fun is you have multiple days. So if you can come for multiple days, that's a tip that I would have, because you start off the first couple days just honing your technique, honing your stuff. So then by the weekend, when it really starts ramping up and you've got all that stuff, you're really in the thick of things. You've got it all worked out and ironed out. So that's what I would suggest if you can. The other thing I would suggest tips-wise is do not miss the evening shows. They have 2 evening shows, one on Wednesday and one on Saturday. They will always start the evening shows. It'll be a night show. They'll call it a night show, but it starts like in that right before sunset. And those shots are always amazing because you know how it is. Great light, great photos.
Right.
So when you have like the colors and then right as the sun sets, like last year it was like right as the sun sets, then the Mustang came out. And the Mustang's flying in that twilight light.
Oh,
and it's
nice.
amazing. This Mustang is like reflecting all the colors, and you've got all the pinks and the purples and the yellows, and so you just get so much dynamic. It's just that whole thing of like light drives it, and that's what we don't get a lot of times on air shows. We don't, because we're shooting in the afternoon, in the middle of the day, not the best light.
Right.
So I always tell everybody, do not miss Wednesday night and do not miss Saturday night. That's where the magic happens.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Another thing I thought of that I think I might have learned from you is to like you were saying, if you go early, then you can kind of see what the program of the show is going to be, and then you'll be able to anticipate certain actions that you know are going to happen and be prepared and ready to capture that shot, because things are moving so quickly that if you kind of know what the show's going to do, the program of it, then you can anticipate those shots and be more likely to get them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. That's what it is. It's just the more you know, because the more you can know the routines. The other thing there's early air shows in the season. A lot of these air shows now stream their events. So like even Sun and Fun does it. A lot of air shows do it now.
Nice.
Where like they'll stream other people's, like their events. The Blue Angels have a routine for that year. The Thunderbirds have a routine for that year. All the demo teams have a routine for that year. The more you can study that routine and know what's coming up next, well, now I can position myself in places where I know, well, given the lighting, given the conditions, I might want to go that way to that side of the air show. I might want to go to that side of the air show. I might want to go off site to do this certain part of their routine. So knowing more about the act and knowing how they're going to perform just helps you be a better photographer. Knowing your subject is key.
Yes.
And that's where, if you're going to do stuff with air shows, you got to know the subject, you got to know the routines.
Right.
What's nice about that is you can know the routines. That's where I do the thing I practice on the most to get better at air shows is birds in flight. Why? Because birds in flight is not predictable.
Right.
So if you can track and capture and get a bird in flight that's erratic and does not have, they have some patterns, and that's what's cool about birds. If you study them, they have certain patterns and cues. If you can get good at reading those patterns and cues, then you can it's really easy to read patterns and cues in planes, because planes move in a more non-erratic way. They don't really they don't come to these shows and do dogfighting, in front of the crowd. They're doing performance routines.
That's cool.
So,
great advice.
there you go.
Well, thanks for joining us today, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks and we'll be back now next week. Scott will not be here again. I will not be here, but we have a cool guest. We have guests coming in.
Yeah, we have a very special show.
Very special show coming up next week.
Lots of guests.
Definitely don't miss it. Yeah, multiple guests.
And we're going to be giving away a ticket to Photoshop World.
Yeah, so definitely tune in next week, and we'll see you next week on the grid.
Bye, everyone.